Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 22 of Pray and Go. Just seems like we just started this yesterday. So today is invite someone you don't know. Meet the severe introvert. People who know me only casually often find it hard to believe that I'm uncomfortable around people I don't know very well. I can't be someone outgoing and controversial in such situations if I have to be. But the operative phrase is if I have to be. I've learned I can be a functional extrovert at times because I am in public quite a bit. I can't just ignore people and stand in a corner by myself. But often that's exactly what I'd like to do. Often, often than when I, sorry, other than when I spend time with family and close friends, I am emotionally and physically drained after spending extended time around people I don't know or don't know well. I especially cringe when someone wants to buy me a cup of coffee and pick my brain. I know it's rather snobby of me to feel that way. I should do better, but that's my reality. I struggle when I'm around people I don't know. But now I'm asking you to write to someone you don't know. I wonder how this assignment makes you feel. Frankly, being an introvert, it's easier for me to write a letter than to engage with someone in person. Perhaps you're wondering who you should write to, especially when it's somebody you don't know. Let's look at some possibilities. I love it when churches keep records of people who have visited in the past. Obviously, there has to be some process in place to get that information. Allow me a brief excursion to help your church get some guest cards completed and returned. There are three major elements. First, the pastor or some person with a level of authority must draw attention to the guest card during the worship service. If no one mentions it, visitors will not complete it and return it. Second, you must ask everyone to complete it, members and guests alike. If most of the congregation is reaching for the card, a guest is more likely to complete it as well. That's why some churches don't call it a guest card, but use a general term such as ministry card. Third, many churches have found it very effective to provide an incentive for turning in the card. Our church donates $5 to local community ministries for every card turned in during the worship service. If 100 cards comes in, the church donates $500 to the ministries. Now, back to the matter of inviting people you don't know. Again, if your church has records of those who have been visited in the past, that would be a perfect source. Try to find the name of someone who is local and not connected with the church. In some churches, the small groups or Sunday school classes have records of previous attendees. If not, some of the members of those groups will likely recall a name for you. Here's an almost certain way to get some names of people to write to. Send an email to a few members you know. Here's an example of an email I wrote not too long ago. I'm writing to the three of you so I can become a Great Commission Christian. Would you give me the names and emails of some people I could invite to church? These names could be your neighbors, coworkers, family members, or anyone you know. I promise I will write a simple email inviting them to church. I will use my name if you want me to. If you don't mention using your name, I will not include it in the email. I have no other motive than to invite people to church so they can be reached and ministered to with the gospel of Christ. The names started rolling in. I was very comfortable writing to those three church members because I knew them well. And because I knew them, they trust me. You will be amazed at how many opportunities there are to reach people with the gospel and invite them to church when you start looking. One church member jumped at providing the name of her mother. Her mom had been out of the church for almost 20 years. Though the daughter had invited her mom to church more than once, the mother's response was tepid at best. But she responded positively immediately when someone else invited her. Indeed, this email you will write to someone you don't know could have profound eternal consequences. Though you may have already written to a leader in your community this challenge, there's absolutely nothing wrong with writing to other leaders. Here's a possible way to find someone. Look at a recent issue of your local paper or newsletter. Most communities have at least a digital version that comes out on a regular basis. If you see you can find a story about a leader, perhaps the county commissioner is planning to introduce an initiative to create a small park in the community. You could write to thank her for her efforts and invite her to church in the same email. This approach has been effective in a number of churches. It's really not hard to find the names of locals within the community leaders. It's usually a matter of public record. Inevitably, the leader will write back and thank you for your encouragement, and he or she might show up at your church. That's the Great Commission in action. I don't imagine you'll have any trouble finding someone you don't know to write to. I am quite certain you have ideas beyond those I've suggested. But if you still haven't come up with a single name, then invite someone you know. It could be someone who hasn't been in a small group or Sunday school class in a while. It could be a merchant to whom you've written to before. It could be a family member who is only an occasional churchgoer. The main purpose of this daily challenge is to get you to look beyond yourself. One of the many days you've prayed for specific areas in your life, your church, and your community. On other days, you've studied Bible verses to move you forward in an outward focus. The purpose of today's challenge is simply to get you thinking about someone who needs Christ, or at the very least, needs a church home. So, if you still can't come up with a name, pray that God will bring someone to mind. Though this challenge is to write to someone you don't know, don't worry if you can only think of someone who is an acquaintance or a friend. Though I should never be surprised at how God works, I'm still amazed at how he can use a simple email to change the path of someone's eternity. Now that you have a name and contact information, write a note to that person. Email him or her right now. Don't let the moment pass. God could indeed be using you to impact someone eternally. So take a moment and ask God to kind of show you who you need to pray for. I think for me, I'm going to post on our little neighborhood app and just put it out there for anybody. All right, have a great rest of your Sunday.